Greetings, this is the Death of Duck Plays. This is the first time I've done this, because I've enjoyed this series quite greatly. I'm going to be reading a series called MassEffect, Jenkins Edition, by Nightshane on Royal Road. Link will be in the description, so that everyone else can go enjoy it, because honestly, really good read. Anyways, to the story. I'll be doing a few parts today, not sure how many, until after I'm done. So, huzzah! And here we go. Part 1. Richard Jenkins. I woke up from my sleep feeling anxious, nervous, down to my core. Today was the day that I was supposed to die. A meaningless gag death, a way of securing the threat our protagonist was going to face without making the player too upset too early. Yeah, no. Not interested. I have taken steps to prepare. I know what's coming, and I'm ready for whatever this universe can throw at me. As I got out of my bunk, I got dressed, pulling on my standard issue Alliance military uniform. The dark blues and grays are a color palette I've grown all too used to in my 6 months in this world. 6 months! That's how long I've been separated from my home, thrown into a world I didn't immediately recognize or know. I woke up in a bunk with 2 sets of memories in my head. In one, I was Richard L. Jenkins. Middle name is in fact Leroy, a 26-year-old Alliance Marine serving under Captain Anderson, born an Eden Prime colonist in 2155 and put to duty on a space station for 4 years. Jenkins is actually a pretty decent soldier. Not overly experienced in live combat, but physically he excels in exercises, and when he's actually applying himself and not slacking off, he's a talented engineer. He managed to rise to the rank of corporal without any pomp and circumstance. So, as a result, he is desperate for a real mission to prove himself and others that he is a true Alliance soldier. In the other set of memories, I was Shane Barron, a 22-year-old college student born in the early 2000s, and a massive sci-fi nerd. Writing or gaming in the times I wasn't spent working or studying, there was a lot of franchises I enjoyed. Marvel films, epic fantasy novels, and of course, RPG video games. My favorite of which would be the Mass Effect series. The world I now found myself stuck within. 2 sets of memories fought for space in my head, but it's pretty clear from how muted Jenkins' memories felt, Shane was obviously my primary personality. While I could remember the same knowledge and events that Jenkins had, thank you very much for the Masters in Engineering, by the way, it was like I was watching a video recording of someone else's experiences. They were mine, but I couldn't really connect or relate to them personally, not like I could my own. That dissonance made me terrified I would somehow out myself. The difference in personality would be noticed by someone, and they would experiment or try to figure out what happened to me. I mean, I was 4 years younger than my body was supposed to be. Someone would pick up on my behavior or my surprise to certain common things. They would notice something was wrong and make me face the consequences. At least, that was my initial worry, but thankfully, Richard Leroy Jenkins is a damn child of a man, fascinated with vid films glorifying the military, alien encounters, and Spectre agents. My own wonder with being in the most critically acclaimed sci-fi setting of all time actually went pretty much unnoticed. In reality, the most significant change was that I apparently worked harder at my engineering duties than Jenkins did. Even Captain Anderson noticed my increased productivity, praising me for finally shaping up. Poor Jenkins never got much respect from the brass. But that leads me to where we are now, on board the SSV Normandy, an experimental cutting-edge ship co-designed by each of the different council races working in tandem. To say it is state-of-the-art would be underselling it. If your average frigate is a child's crayon drawing, then this is the goddamn Mona Lisa. I'd be on board for approximately a little over a week following Captain Anderson's orders. The ship is still piloted by an entirely human crew, which was expected to change once the ship was put through its paces and made public. A peacemaking project of sorts, showing that humans and the council races could not only cooperate, but strengthen each other. Of course, that was the goal anyways, not that it would ever get the chance given the events that were about to happen over the next few days. I knew personally what would happen to this ship, becoming the most critical vessel in the war against the vastly superior enemy, a synthetic blight nobody knew was coming. Nobody except me that was. Hence, my sudden increase in productivity in engineering duties. I was designing an Omni tool upgrade that would help shield against external influences. On paper, I was simply attempting to increase its resistance to being hacked and interfered with by enemy forces. But my real goal was a little more esoteric. Today, we will face our first encounter with the Reapers. While my design wasn't complete yet, my hope was to eventually program a tool that could counter the frequency Reapers use for mind control, providing either immunity or at least resistance to indoctrination. Of course, it was nowhere near working yet. I didn't have a sample of the Reaper signals, so I could only do so much. However, the work against traditional hacking had gone quite well. Captain Anderson had me outfit all of the crew and the ground teams with the Omni tools that had the upgrade. Apparently, it was significant enough of an improvement for ship-wide dispersal, or so he says. Frankly, I think he's just trying to encourage my newfound efforts. It's sweet but a little transparent. Captain Anderson is pretty much the ship dad with his behavior sometimes. He treats the Marines below him well, though, and you can't find a better or more loyal captain anywhere in the Alliance. All of our lovable crew members rise and shine on this beautiful spacey morning. It is currently 4:89 GST. Get yourself up, grab some breakfast, as we have a busy day ahead. We will be participating in a relay jump to Eden Prime at 5:50, and I don't want anyone throwing up on my new ship. Joker's voice rang over the loudspeaker, eliciting a chuckle. Last time he pulled one of these morning announcements, it was when he first got aboard, and Anderson chewed him out for it. I can only imagine he's doing it to annoy the new guest aboard. I stood to my full height as soon as I finished tying my boots, stopping to look in the mirror. It still took some getting used to seeing someone else looking back at me. 6 months, and it still surprised me to see an older man, a different ethnicity, hair color, hell, even our eye colors were different. I was kind of getting used to it, but it still caught me off guard on occasion. More than a bit of body dysmorphia. On the bright side, though, I had to shave way less, as Jenkins had his facial hair come in light and much slower than I did, and it practically never trimmed his eyebrows. Jenkins' hair was a light brown, borderline onto blonde, uniformly shaved across his head since neither of us could be bothered with maintaining it longer hair. Blue eyes, even a face with a muscular build. We were actually the same height, 185 centimeters, 6'1", although he was in much better shape than I was, coming in at 82 kilos, 181 pounds. The best way to describe Jenkins is unremarkable. He was just meant to be a forgettable grunt, so much so, more than one person has described them as cannon fodder, designed to die in the opening moments of the first game. Nope, not this time. Today I was going to officially break what was canonically supposed to happen, and right at the start of the game proper. God, hopefully the consequences don't get too out of hand early. I need to be able to predict what's coming to survive the literally galaxy-spanning war to come. Shaking my head, I affixed my beret and quickly scanned to make sure my bunk room was in good shape. The ground teams had a different barrack space than the rest of the crew. 2 bunks to a room multiplied by 6 rooms, and there was enough space to hold 12 active duty soldiers aboard the ship. As of now, there was only 3 of us, all keeping separate rooms. Of course, my room was kept relatively tidy, the bed and sleeping area always neatly made like any good soldier. However, the desk at the back of the room had been made into a workspace, and that was anything but tidy. An open hollow screen showed my latest attempt at the programming, a more secure version of the current Omni tool upgrade, far from finished. Different mechanical parts strewn about on the surface showed my other attempts at modifying biotic amps. It was a personal project I took on after Caden launched me into a wall. Speaking of Caden, he was the one next door to my bunk, and we actually spent a good amount of time together. We met before our service on the ship, both working under Anderson for 6 months together. He never really shared his personal life, at least nothing from his time as a BAT student, despite the few times I've asked. I've never pushed him to share since I knew what he'd gone through for external reasons. And if he wasn't comfortable with sharing that with me, then I wasn't going to press it on him. That said, sharing a bunk a single wall away from him meant I could still hear when he had his nightmares. Thrashing in his sleep. A damaged soldier, wounded before ever seeing combat. He was a good man, but needed support. I tried to be as good a friend as I could. A measured thing when you know everything there is to know about someone before you even met. Down the hall was another room, at the end of the corridor. It was a private room reserved for the ground team leader. A large space for the ship's commander's second. Currently, it is occupied by a living legend, Commander King Shepard. Commander Jane Shepard, to be specific. Spacer-born and a sole survivor for her origin from what I could piece together, surviving an attack by a thresher maw on Akuzi. Her whole unit was wiped to the last man except for her. She survived the physical and psychological ordeal that was, and returned to combat again soon after. A literal damn hero. We first met when she boarded the Normandy with the rest of us a week ago. We had interacted a few times since, mostly introductions and polite conversation. But she just felt so damn powerful compared to me. Everyone looked her way any time she entered a room, and each syllable that left her lips didn't just demand, but command the respect and the attention of all who looked on. No wonder the Reapers would eventually consider her their greatest threat. She's the damn hero of the story, after all. Our conversations had been mostly impersonal, although she showed interest in my engineering projects, and in particular my attempts at modifying biotic implants, since she was biotic herself. Full biotic or of a Vanguard build, I wasn't sure yet. Either way, she was obviously be a powerhouse in any battlefield she took charge of. Speaking of battlefield, I delayed long enough. I need to prepare for today's mission, since I'm supposed to die after all. Ideally, it should be easily to avoid. Take cover instead of trying to engage. Let Shepard and Caden take down the Geth drones while they're trying to turn me into past tense post-haste. I worried for a moment about the changes that my survival could cause. Losing my knowledge of the future would be costly, but given how reactionary the MassEffect trilogy is, it hopefully shouldn't have too large of an impact. I straightened the shirt of my uniform, took a breath, and opened the door to my bunk, preparing to head to the mess hall for a quick breakfast. I was surprised to see a large individual standing in front of me instead. Tall, nearly a half-foot taller than myself, wearing a black and red armor, and equipped with an Apocalypse series shotgun. He cut an intimidating figure. A large, armored carapace covered his exposed head, his mandible-like mouth flickering slightly as he observed me with fierce eyes. A yellow iris on a black surface stared deep into my figure, evaluating me in my entirety. They were a Turian, one of the 3 council races, and the first species humanity encountered as they started exploring the stars. That event ended up leading to a 3-month-long war we called the First Contact War. It ended in an armistice, and less than 1,000 lives were lost on either side of the conflict. But now, almost 3 decades later, Turian and human relations are not ideal. In fact, that poor relationship was one of the main reasons behind Normandy's co-designed effort between the species. Jenkins had no issues when it came to Turians, thankfully. So, my only fascination with the species didn't have to be hidden, especially because the Turian in front of me was Neolus. He was a specter of great renown who had boarded our ship and the only other named NPC besides myself that would die on today's mission. Corporal Jenkins, Captain Anderson directed me to your bunk. He said that you could be of some service to me. Okay, I hadn't even done anything major to change this universe, and now a specter was looking for me by name. I could already feel the plot of the RPG as I knew it beginning to fracture around me. I was going to destroy the canon of these stories just by being here. Part 2, Jenkins POV. Captain Anderson wanted you to see me? Sure, yeah. How can I help you? I speak the words trying to catch my surprise in my throat. I'm clearly a bit of a fanboy when it comes to aliens of the series, so seeing one was cool enough, but for that alien to also be a super elite cop was pretty damn cool. Actually, I sought you out myself. I noticed that the captain's Omni tool was different from the standard issue found in the Alliance. I'm partial to several technical skills, and still found myself unable to remote access or infiltrate its systems without dedicated effort. Anderson informed me that it was an upgraded software, one you had designed. There's no question in his words as he speaks. He's simply telling me what he knows and gauging my response. Yeah, I've been working on general Omni tool upgrades for some time. While the Alliance model security isn't bad, its defenses are still weak to any infiltrator with passing skill. Hell, there are programs on the market that can do the infiltration without any skill needed. I start speaking as I turn back to my room, waving for Nihilus to follow me. I make my way back to my working desk, sitting onto my chair as I pull up a large hollow screen across the table. I quickly swipe away the programs I was working on, pulling up my work files I had completed for the current Omni tool upgrades. Security was my primary concern, of course, but as was combat defense. Disruptions or overload techniques are peculiarly dangerous in active combat, so I was interested in solving both of those as well. I point to the areas on the screen that mark the strengthened firewall and anti-intelligence programs. Nihilus had followed me into the room and was carefully observing me from over my shoulder. Now, it was intensive on the device to try and run both sets of programs, issues with the power supply, processing power, and other hardware limitations. So instead, I designed two versions of the code. One is program upgrade, like you see here, that simply contains stronger firewall enhanced with automated scramble program. I single out the selection of code that I wrote, putting it aside on a separate hollow screen and sliding it to Nihilus to have a look at while I continue explaining. While it won't stop someone of sufficient skill from breaching, no one should be able to design a program to do it automatically so it's beneficial for the crew and non-combatants. This is the version you saw Captain Anderson's tool running. Every member of this ship's crew has this version as well. He finishes reading what I had sent, nodding as I finish and looking back towards me. It's impressive work, Corporal. Nothing revolutionary, but a significant improvement with relatively simple and non-intrusive means. Making a standard Omni tool this much more secure with just a software update is nothing to scoff at. He seemed genuine in his praise, and he saved a copy of the code I sent over to his device, not hiding the action as he did. His eyes scan again, trying to evaluate my reaction. Sorry, Nihilus. Jenkins and I have one thing in common, and that's we are both massive nerds. I don't care about hiding any improvements I make. I just enjoy talking shop with someone other than Cadian, who only pretends to understand out of kindness. Thank you? What's your actual rank? I'm aware you're a Spectre, but I feel strange calling you Spectre Nihilus. I ask, unsure of protocol for this. You can refer to me as Aquila Nihilus if you prefer proper ranks. His response is simple and to the point. God, why is he so damn cool? I'm trying to have a conversation without losing it. Thank you, Aquila Nihilus. I'm glad my work was able to be of benefit to our crew, although it's nothing compared to what I accomplished alongside the hardware improvements. I reach over and pull up the second version of the code, a much larger and more complex collection. As I do so, I remove my own Omni tool from my arm, handing it over to Nihilus so he can inspect it. The larger issue that my attempts were facing were, as I said, power supply and processing power. Now, obviously, I couldn't safely improve the power supply in such a device. It would just make it more susceptible to overload programs and only provide marginal gains. Not worth the effort. However, what I did have room to play with was processing power. He looks at me as he's inspecting my Omni tool and almost looks shocked as he realizes why it is so much larger and bulkier than the standard issued ones. Corporal Jenkins. This is a VI module. Direct integration into an Omni tool is bordering the line of illegal AI research. You are aware of the risks that such a method exposes. He speaks firmly, again, with no question in his tone. The cool motherfucker he is. Of course, Aquila, but I guarantee you there is no risk of potential AI development. The VI is isolated to this module extension. It has zero programming capability or access to even hardline communications, much less the greater extranet. Its sole purpose is counter-infiltration programming. It assists the scramble programs and can directly counter external hacking attempts. He's watching me firmly. I can feel him searching for a deception or mistruth in what I'm saying, but I was very thorough in my design. While I may be more pro-A than most, given my game knowledge, I still won't risk breaking one of the galaxy's strictest laws. It does have management over power supply and a few other select hardware systems as well. However, that is simply to work as an emergency reset option in case someone does manage to breach the defense. I reach for the Omni tool and Nihilus pauses for a moment before handing it back to me. I slap it onto my wrist before re-enabling its programs. Now, Aquila Nihilus, please attempt to run an overload program on my Omni tool. I say, standing to my feet and stepping a few from my desk. Excuse me, Corporal? I apologize, but I possess Spectre-grade equipment. Your device, no matter the upgrade, would fall in moments. He says, looking at me, as though I just asked him to shoot someone. Of course. I don't expect it to be able to resist your equipment for long at all. That's the point. Please, it's far easier to understand if you can just see the effect. I speak plainly, full of confidence. This is the perfect test run for my design. If it functions well, even under the speed and power of the highest quality infiltration gear in the galaxy, then it will hopefully last against Geth or Reapers. Hopefully. Very well, Corporal, but you were warned. He runs his hands, his 3 fingers activating the device's program. Its effect happens fast, even quicker than Shepard's N7 gear that I had test this module earlier. A shock runs up my arm, causing it to twitch and spasm, before, in the same moments, the lights of my Omni tool cut off. It kills the electric current in its tracks before, barely a single second later, the power returns to my Omni tool functioning as intended. Ta-da! With access to the power supply, it is able to kill the power supply during an overload attempt before restoring functions in less than a second. Not ideal for high communication roles, but in active combat, it can be the difference between life and death. I finished explaining, gesturing towards my bulkier Omni tool. Frankly, I was impressed. I only received a small shock from his gear, I was expecting at least to partially stun my full body, not just my arm. Nihilus is silent as he observes me shake off an expert overload with barely a scratch. His eyes are alight as he processes the effects of what he just saw. Remarkable. Manually shutting down your own device to prevent a greater attack, and it automatically restores function on its own? We may have to consider implementing the device among specters. Would it be possible? I cut him off as I send a copy of the code and my schematics for the upgrade. Of course, Aquila. Here, you should find a copy of the code, my hardware designs, and a copy of the VI's programming as well. I'm certain the hierarchy and the council will want to review them before considering implementation to verify that there are no risks. For the first time, he looked genuinely surprised at my cooperation, glancing at the code I sent over before saving it to device. Thank you, Corporal. I must say, I am surprised and pleased with your openness to share this sort of work. I understand many of your race still hold a grudge for my people, as mine do yours. Never lost my family in the First Contact War, so not really as invested as others might be. Besides, there are bigger threats in the galaxy to worry about than fighting amongst ourselves. Sharing resources and technology is our greatest advantage. I give him a smile as I walk back to the foot of my desk. I open the drawer and remove a large disk, my hardware upgrade for the Yummy tool I had designed, although a more plug-and-go version than the integrated one I had. Here! I hand the device over to Nihilus. Our entire ground team is equipped with this enhanced tool. This can be plugged into the end of your device and will function the same as my integrated model. You're welcome to use it for yourself. Field test if you desire. Please, Nihilus. This is a big part of my screwing with the cannon plan. I need you to use the device. He looks down at the tool and then scans the device with his own Omni tool. He holds like that for a moment, apparently debating his options, before plugging the extension into the end of his device. No bugs or tracking devices detected. I'll see how it performs in the field. On-hand experience is more useful than lab tests. Wouldn't you agree, Corporal? Of course, Aquila. I couldn't agree more. I gestured to the door to my room, leading us into the halls of the ship. I'm glad I could be of service. Hopefully its performance can meet your expectations. I turn and face him. The larger alien man is intimidating in appearance, but he really is a good man. I debate for a moment, trying to warn him about what was to come. To not trust Saren. It wouldn't make any sense. There's no way I know who Saren was. That they would be on Eden Prime. Still, I'm trying to save my own life. It isn't unfair if I only try that for myself. If anyone deserves to live, it's the man in front of me. He reaches his arm out, holding it for a handshake. Thank you for your assistance, Corporal. If you're interested, I'd be happy to talk shop after our mission today. Your insights are rather unique. I'd be surprised to see what you can do with other equipment. It caught me off guard for a moment. His genuine kindness and interest in my work. There's part of me that is Jenkins freaking out, while all I feel is guilt for condemning a good man to die. I reach out and shake his hand in return. Of course, Aquila, it'd be my pleasure. I'm certain a man of your renown would have plenty of advice and insight to offer me. There's no way I could warn him. Any subtle attempt to tell him to be cautious will be ignored when he encounters Saren. And anything direct will just make me appear suspicious. His trust for that man is unwavering. I'm sorry, Nihilus. But with that Omni tool upgrade, at least your death can help us deal with some future difficulties a little easier. Upon shaking my hand and offering a smile, he turns and walks out through the hallway door into the rest of the ship. I watch him leave for a moment, just focusing on breathing and settling my thoughts. He would die today, like I was supposed to. I can only hope that this isn't for nothing this time. I turn and walk out into the ship proper. Well, there you have it. Part 1 and 2 for Mass Effect, Jenkins Edition. I will continue to keep up with the story until I've reached current, which is, as of the time of recording this, part 43. And I hope everyone enjoyed this as well. Please like, comment, subscribe. Tell me how you felt about this content. This is the first time I've done it, so it's going to take me a bit longer to get this series going until my tongue and brain can stop getting in the way of each other. Like, seriously, it's embarrassing how many times I've bloopered this. Probably record an entire video this length with just the bloopers alone. Well, I hope everyone has a great day, night, evening, time of day here. I don't really have any good outros. This is my first outro of proper quality because I actually have a working microphone now. Why am I rambling? I should stop. Okay, have a good one. Bye.